Shall we?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Welcome to VCR, Vintage Cinema Rewind. We're bringing old movies to new viewers. I'm Blake.
And welcome, and I'm Michael, and welcome to our coziest episode.
Ooh. The Cozy Podcast.
Yeah, we're in our recording den right now.
We are, actually.
Our cozy recording den.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about Cosy Dens.
Yes, one of the most famous Czech movies, actually rated or considered the best Czech movie of all time.
And you know what? I have to, cards on the table. I had a great time with this one.
I really liked it too.
This was fun. This was fun. I feel like, in particular, I've been on a death spiral lately. Not really.
An existential crisis for the movies that we've picked?
Yeah, not really. It's just the last couple movies we did just didn't resonate with me.
Right, whereas they really resonated with me.
Yeah, exactly, right? So it's the give and take, the push and pull of our relationship. But anyway, no, I within a couple minutes of this movie, I was kind of like, okay, like I sat up a little straighter and like leaned forward.
Yeah,
I was like, I'm listening.
Yeah, I'm in. I'm ready to go. Like, I think that for me, this is kind of like equivalency of Christmas Vacation. Whereas Christmas Vacation in my family, in my house, is like a cult classic. It's something that I come back to almost every year.
Time and time again. Yeah.
And, it's got that levity. It's got that family dynamic core to the story. So for me, I kind of see this as a spiritual connection to that kind of movie. This is very much a movie about family and about I guess intermingling of families as well.
Yeah, I mean, maybe from there we'll just jump right into the
Sure.
plot summary, such that it is. Sorry, I just want to look up the main kid's name again.
I think it's just Michael. I think you can just call him Michael.
Ugh, gross.
There's probably a better way to pronounce that in Czech, but because there's no E in it. But...
Yeah, you're right. Okay, yeah, just so you guys know, we're dumb white Canadians. We're just doing our best over here.
Yeah, but, again, cards on the table. We're going to talk about this a few times in this episode, I think, that, we're from North America, and something that I've learned in the last year of doing foreign movies is that we're taught shockingly little about the history of non-North American culture.
Yeah.
Especially in the last, 150 years. You got to think about, especially from being from Canada, as soon as we became our own country, all of our history lessons just kind of focused on us. So, I don't think either of us probably knew a whole lot about the Prague Spring before we started this movie, right?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I heard Prague Spring and I thought it was like a mattress store or something. I was like, interesting. Okay, so anyways, yeah, Cosy Dens. It's the movie itself came out at the turn of the millennium, 1999, I believe.
Great year.
Yeah, good times. We were 7. We had not yet discovered what podcasting was. But the movie itself is a period piece taking place in about 1967 up until... It basically covers a range of a whole year. It starts with a Christmas, breezes through the next year, and then ends at the following Christmas, 1968. Basically, it's just there is a main character, Michael, gross name, hate it. He's a very moody 16-year-old who is in a one-sided romantic relationship with the woman who lives upstairs.
Yes.
Who he's madly in love with, but she's dating this cool artist who...
Who's also his best friend,
right? So... Michael takes this extraordinarily well. The movie opens with him trying to hang himself.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, opening a movie with a teenager attempting suicide is a bold choice.
It's such a great black humor start to this movie.
I
actually chuckled to myself, as dark as it was, and I think that was the point, was you were supposed to kind of laugh at it.
Well, it's funny because he tries to hang himself in this gazebo.
Yeah.
But the roof won't support his weight.
Right.
So it just collapses in on top of him. And then the woman he was killing himself over finds him, and he just kind of looks up at her and is like, Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
So, this is a story about Michael, but in a much broader sense, it's really a story about 3 families suffering through the holidays together.
Yeah.
There's Michael and his dad, who's kind of an army officer. There's the young woman and her father, who is just the world's angriest man.
Yes, yes. More on that in the deep dive.
Yeah. And then there's also Michael's cousin and his mom, who's like screening all these different marriage candidates. She's like a single mother, and
Yep.
she's looking for a husband and a father for her young son, and
Yes.
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know what I was thinking, and I was talking to Sarah about this. Spoiler alert, she watched it with me, and she actually liked it quite a bit too.
Nice.
You know, yeah, there's some historical events that you and I are a little iffy on, like Prague Spring, when the communists invaded the Czech and
Yep.
stuff like that. And
Yep.
so obviously this takes place in a very, or rather, this movie has a very particular sense of time and place.
Yes.
But beyond that, there's something almost timeless about the movie.
Yeah, and that's something that I wrote down while I was watching it is I think that this is a very earnest movie. And I think that, you know, despite a lot of the context needed for, you know, the Czech culture, I think that this is a pretty accessible movie for the most part, for people outside of the Czech and the Eastern European countries.
Well, I feel like this is kind of a movie you could have shown me like 16 years ago, and I probably would have enjoyed it just as much, because it really it's about all these families, but it's also, there's a lot of focus on like intergenerational conflict.
Yep.
And like these teenagers who are rebelling against their parents, who all, you know, are very closely tied with the military and stuff like that. There's a great scene where I think her name's Eileen, the young woman that Michael's in love with.
Eilen's the cool friend.
Oh, that's right.
Jinriska is the woman. I think they shorten it to like Gindry.
Gingery. Okay, yeah. Again, white Canadians, we're doing our best.
Yeah.
But, there's a great scene where she's having lunch with her parents, and she gets into such a stupid fight with her father over whether these are like dumplings or something else.
Yep.
And it escalates and escalates and escalates. And I was like, wow, it's so bitter and funny, because, I mean, like, not to that extent, of course, but I think anyone who's been a teenager has had stupid fights with your parents like that over the most, like, the smallest things.
Well, and I think part of the reason why this has a cult classic status to it, and why it was so accessible clearly to you and I, is that I think no matter when you watch this, there's probably a character that you could connect with.
Yeah, like talking about Michael, the main character, again, disgusting name, but like you know, he's not exactly always a likable little guy, but I mean, you know,
who among us has not been Michael at some point?
Who among us has not been Michael? If you're lucky, you grow out of it. If you're unlucky, you start a podcast with your friend. But no, but I mean, he's a bit of a little shit, and he gets kind of creepy as the movie goes on. But like, you know, this may surprise you, but I'm sure most of us have had. Me in particular has had like one-sided.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Flings that didn't end well. So
you're either Michael or you're Eileen, and most of us are not Eileen.
Most of us are not Eileen. Maybe you're Eileen for a specific moment in your life, but usually you're Michael.
Yeah, most of the time you're Michael.
Yeah,
It's like 99% of the male experiences you're Michael.
Right, trying to just hang yourself in a gazebo. So yeah, it's very. And even like the parents, right, who are like struggling to put food on the table, and you know, they're arguing about the way things are changing and stuff like that.
Yep.
And you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I mean, you said that Michael's the main character, which I wouldn't disagree with necessarily, but I would actually say what surprised me on my watch of this was I really thought the focus was going to be on the kids in this movie, and I came away kind of thinking, you know, this was actually a movie where pretty much all of the characters share equal screen time.
Yeah, it's hard, you know, maybe you could say Michael is kind of our like viewpoint, everyman main character, but like, yeah, I mean, most ensemble casts, you can usually point to one person and be like, that's the main character. Right? You know, like, I don't know why this is jumping in my head, but like in The Suicide Squad by James Gunn, you point at Bloodsport and you're like, that's the main character. Right?
Yep.
But Yeah, everybody kind of gets, everybody shares space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's something important to note. And I think that, again, that's probably why this movie has held up really well, is because, you know, as those teenagers in the 90s who watched this movie and maybe connected with it have become parents of their own, they've probably also continued to connect with it and change their relationship with it. Another good comparison maybe to this movie would be like something like, and this is a little personal, but like Stand By Me is a movie that has grown with me over time.
Yeah, definitely.
So, you know, I think that this is a movie that would also probably share that sort of endearment with the Czech people.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, really cool. I'm glad that we found this one to watch. Characters and people you may know, I don't think we have too much to talk about here coming from a North American viewpoint. A lot of these actors are...
all the actors are great, by the way.
They're all fantastic.
Yeah, like
absolutely.
I actually, there's no weak links.
Not at all. And they're all great, and they're just not necessarily people that anyone from North America has heard of before, so probably not a draw in necessarily in that regard. However, I will say that the dad, played by Miroslav Donutil, actually was the main voice dub for Kevin Costner movies and Gerard Depardieu movies into the Czech language.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Tight.
Kind of neat, right? But otherwise, and actually, the dad was the one that I actually connected with the most. He was the character that I appreciated the most in this movie, so I don't know what that says about me, but...
Yeah, well, I'm still relating to Michael at 33, so I don't know what that says about me.
But yeah, I think that they're kind of the two main focal points for me of the movie. I also wrote down, like you said, that all performances in this movie are really strong. And yeah, the director, Jan Hrebekčík, I'm never going to say that again.
We're trying, okay?
He also did another Czech movie called Divided We Fall, which came out a year later, which was also relatively well revered.
Okay.
And it's I believe about World War II, so kind of focused on that period of history. Who is this movie for, and does it count as a Christmas movie? Where do you want to start?
It's definitely a Christmas movie.
Absolutely a Christmas movie.
Not just because it takes place on Christmas.
Well,
but...
the first act really takes place on Christmas, right?
Yeah.
And then it maybe kind of moves on from that. However, I completely agree with you. This is a Christmas movie in my mind as well. And I think that part of why it's a Christmas movie is because just the way that it portrays the family dynamic, it captures something. And I think the feeling of it is closest to like Christmas Eve. Like that feeling of things are going to be okay, but it's also really chaotic and everyone's just slightly on edge because it's not quite Christmas yet.
Well, and more to that point, it's all about, you know, not to quote Vin Diesel, but it's a movie about family and how like fractured and complicated family can truly be.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like the weight of expectations and, you know, all that stuff. So in that regard too, and I wouldn't even say it necessarily ends with like some big moment of reconciliation.
No.
It's just kind of like my family kind of sucks, but it's my family. Ugh, you know?
Quite the opposite, honestly. No spoilers, but quite the opposite.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, I would say this is definitely a Christmas movie, and quite frankly, I do think, like I said earlier, there is something universal and timeless about this movie. So I hesitate to say it's for everyone because I just think a lot of people just maybe aren't willing to sit through a foreign film from 20 years ago, closer to 30 years ago now. But
yeah.
In some ways, it's kind of, you know, like I watched this with my partner and we both were laughing our asses off at it.
I was having a good laugh as well. Jess wasn't really paying attention, so we're getting 3 viewpoints on this, but I thought this was great. I think that maybe what's going to just be that extra incentive for people who may be on the fence is if you like maybe smaller family dramas or family dramedies, I think that's where you may kind of find something a little bit more. Like that may be the final piece of like the yay or nay on it, right?
Yeah, and I mean maybe more to that point as well. The tone of this movie is the tone is never so unbelievably depressing.
Right.
For a movie that begins with a suicide attempt, it's
like
it's definitely dark at times and a little bit bitter, but
Mhm.
there is kind of like a charm and a wit to this movie that
Absolutely
just kind of
agree.
carries you through it,
Yeah,
right?
it sits in that very unique situation of, like you said, being very dark, but also having that lightheartedness to it that you can kind of still connect to, and still feel warm about. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Like
no,
it's
that's a really tight rope to walk.
yeah, and it does this exceptionally well. So no, I do think this movie deserves to be seen by a lot more people. And by the way, it's free on YouTube.
Yes,
That's where we saw it.
that's where we saw it. I will say, and this is getting ahead a little bit. I will say that the YouTube version is looks great, fantastic. I think that the English subtitles are really good. There's so many ads on that version of the YouTube. Like it was like every like 5 minutes there was like
Oh,
30
really?
seconds of ads on my version.
See, not to flex my enormous wealth over here, but I have YouTube
Oh
Premium.
my god, you almost need it for this.
Yeah, so maybe start a subscription, watch this movie, then cancel it.
Hmm. Or yeah, just rent it somewhere. It was only available to buy on Apple, which I was kind of annoyed by, but
Oh, that Apple. You know that I don't have a great working relationship with them, so no thank you.
so yeah. I think that maybe the other draw in for this movie is that this movie takes a lot of time and effort to establish the time period in the set design, and kind of the details of that era in Czechia.
Right.
So if you're kind of a student of history, I think this movie is really cool and unique in that sense as well. I did write down some need to knows or some good to knows going into this. Um, so Mr. Seebeck, Michael's dad,
Mhm.
he's the communist officer, right? So
Right.
his viewpoint is very pro-socialism, very pro-communist, and he's kind of and part of the big conflict of this movie is he's opposite his upstart neighbor, Mr. Kraus, who's an anti-communist patriot. He was a former war hero, and probably has some PTSD going on.
Oh, you think? Just a little bit. Yeah.
Um,
He's on his third heart attack.
yes.
Which, and by the way, I was rooting for the fourth the whole movie. I was like, come on.
And then Aileen's parents actually, I think this is also important to know, live in the U.S. and are ambassadors. So he has a lot of American influence. A lot of the movie kind of paints him as the focal point for where the American influence is coming in, right? And then kind of also kind of knowing this time period in history. So from 1948 to 1960 was the Czechoslovak Republic. It was under communist rule. And again, we don't learn a lot about communist rule on this side of the Atlantic, I don't think.
No.
So kind of this is my absolute coal notist of coal notes, that basically World War II ends with, the Allies and the Soviets meeting in Berlin, essentially. After World War II, the Soviet Union already, the Red Army's in most of the Eastern Bloc of countries, and they're like, hey, we're already here. Why don't we make this a little bit more permanent?
Woo!
And so they kind of not necessarily like fully take over all of these countries, but they essentially become like satellite states of the Soviet Union, and they're heavily, heavily, heavily influenced by the Soviet Union and are all under the Warsaw Pact together. And the Czech, this is kind of interesting that I didn't know, again, about,
Yeah.
because I don't know a whole lot about Czechia, if I'm being honest, but the Czech before World War I and II were actually a very democratic country.
Okay.
And so it was around this time period that they became socialist because of the influence of the Soviets. And so the Prague Spring, kind of leading up to where this movie is at a point in time when the Czechia people are kind of starting to look to get a little bit more freedom, kind of move more toward the Western democratic culture that they had previously. And so, the movie kind of leads up to the end of the Prague Spring and the like crushing of the dissent by the Soviets. And that's kind of the history there, is that the Soviets were looking at a country that they had significant influence over and were basically like, we don't want them moving more towards the west. So
It's kind of like, they're kind of already running things already, and they're just like, let's just crush down on them.
Yeah. So, very similar vibe to maybe some of the Russia-Ukraine stuff also going on right now. So kind of interesting in that sense as well. And that is the end of my history corner, I think.
I appreciate it, because I was kind of, to be honest, I hesitate to say the world building, because that makes it sound like I'm talking about a fantasy novel, but I liked the world building, and that stuff is there. But this movie, I think very wisely, is so squarely focused on the humans or the human drama that it's almost like that stuff is like a black vapor in the distance.
Well, and it's so focused on them and them in their space, right? And this political kind of narrative kind of creeps into the corners, and it's like definitely influences the viewpoints of a lot of the characters. But I think just knowing a little bit of that detail just kind of maybe sprinkles some.
Yeah, I wish I had done a little bit of research before going into this and knowing that, because that would have maybe added a few extra layers.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I mean, at the end of the day, I actually think that part of this movie, and, you can definitely see it between the competition between the two dads. It kind of boils down to that competition between Western and Soviet ideals. And how competitive those two were during the Cold War era,
right?
And even how petty that those competitions could be as well.
Yeah, it's kind of like a microcosm for that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's it for my history background of this movie. When to watch? I think this is a Sunday evening movie with the family. Snowier the better in Canada, in my opinion.
I agree. Yeah. Maybe, especially if you have different political views to your family, that'll really probably...
that'll spice it up.
Yeah, if you want to get thrown out of Christmas this year, if you don't ever want to be invited back to any Christmas, now's your chance.
Awesome. And yeah, I think that's most of what I wanted to talk about for the primer episode. You got anything else you wanted to mention?
No, just, again, I liked this movie quite a bit, and yeah, I do think it deserves to be seen by more people.
Yeah. You know what? Going into this, we're going to have the deep dive episode next week, but I'd love to hear some comments from Czech people about our perspectives of this movie, and maybe some other kind of cultural reference points that maybe we're potentially going to miss in the comments.
I would love if this episode came out and we inexplicably became the greatest podcast in the Czech Republic.
That would be something.
Yeah, I'll take it.
If we had more than 5 views from Czechia at this point on our podcast, I would be surprised.
Yeah, and delighted.
Yes.
Surprised and delighted. You're all friends of the podcast here.
Yeah. Okay, and I think that is it for the deep dive episode. So, cool movie, really liked it. Excited to talk about it in the spoiler full episode in the deep dive next week.
That's right.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Right. Tell your dad.
Keep the carp in the bathtub.
Spoilers.
Hey.